Hey, it's Jonathan. I got a good question, and it's from a company that's actually doing well. What I mean by that is they're actually doing pretty good revenue. And so the question is, I do about $2 million per year, and I'd like to eventually go get to 10 million. Is that possible? I don't really know anyone that's running a $10 million company. And so I actually, rather than just quickly answer the question, I made some notes here, and you may or hopefully you can see my screen on this video, and you can see some of these statistics and some of the things that I've put up here because I think this question is worth expanding on. And so let me run through this and talk about it. So first, I want to make sure that the answer doesn't come across negative, but what I want to do is answer the question and then give you a little bit of insight into what goes into creating a $10 million company in the lawn care industry and some of the realities of it. And so, again, not meant to be negative, but from a planning standpoint, from a how to build the company standpoint, from what kind of investment you're going to have to make to get to that level standpoint, I wanted to give some feedback. And it's absolutely possible. There is absolutely no question that it's possible. The question is it something you want to do? Is it something that really matters that much that you want to put the work into getting to that level? Because it's absolutely possible. Now, here's some interesting stats, and I don't know their exact accuracy, but you can see here, looking at this right here, roughly 77% of lawn care companies do less than $500,000 per year in gross revenue, meaning of all, if you tally up all their invoices for the entire year, 77% do less than $500,000 a year. That's not what they put in the bank and take home. That's what they do, again, gross revenue. And you can see kind of how this breaks down in the industry. About 10% do between 500 to a million, roughly just under a million. So there's 87% of the market right there does not even exceed $1 million in gross revenue or gross receipts in 1 year. And then the guys that do over that amount, they're the remainder. Yeah, so roughly what would that be? About 13% of the market does over $1 million per year, and you can kind of see how this breaks down here. Roughly 7.9% does $1 million to 2.5, and then the $2.5 to $5 million range, about 2.5% of the market does that. So in your question, right now you're in the top roughly 13% of the marketplace. Actually, you're above that because you're at the $2 million mark. So my hunch is you're in the top 8% or so. Who knows? Maybe 6%. I really don't know exactly. So obviously you've done a great job to build your business to even that level, and so it's fantastic. Now to go from where you're at now to 10 million plus, you're now going to be in the top 1% of all companies in the United States when it gets into the lawn care industry if you're building a business that does over 10 million per year. Now, again, that's not to be negative. That's how a lot of industries actually break down. Not these exact splits, but in most industries, most businesses don't exceed $1 million a year. And when you start breaking through that $10 million mark, you're really in a small class of companies in the United States. And as I've said before in other videos, there's a lot of things that have to happen in your business to get to that level. The things you do up here when you're running the $1 million business are not the same things you do when you're running a $5 and $10 million company. You've got to learn new things. You've got to do different things. You've got to manage the company different. You have to delegate even more. You have even less control over many aspects of the business at 10 million. So it really, to get to that level, there's a lot within you that has to grow and develop and change. And there's a lot of things you have to deal with that you'll never have to deal with as a smaller operation. So part of it's just what we all go through to become better business owners and what we have to learn to be able to run businesses of that size and learn to do what it takes to get to that level. So I've probably said this one too. I just made some notes because I thought this was such a valuable point. If you want to get to this $10 million mark, you absolutely cannot copy what your competitors are doing. If you're copying them, you're not going to get there. I mean, it's pretty clear that if only 1% of the companies in the U.S. are doing 10 million plus, roughly, and 1% is not quite accurate, I'm just using that number as an example, you obviously, there's very, very few companies out there that you can really closely model in terms of what they're doing now, because obviously they're not at the $10 million mark. And so you have to be very careful about how you look at, and you've got to be who you look at for your examples, and you've got to be careful who you model and where you get your advice from, because like I said, a guy running $1 million business hasn't had to encounter yet what it takes to grow to a $10 million mark. Now he may be well on his way, but it's better to get the advice from somebody that's growing, that has already done it. And so just be careful who you get the advice from there. So my personal theory on it is the three most important things in regards to getting to this $10 million mark. They're your sales and marketing, your people, and your technology. I think at the end of the day, those are the three most important things. The people really are the most important things, but you have to put sales and marketing ahead of your people, because unless you figure out the sales and marketing thing, there's no chance of being able to afford to hire the best people. That's the only reason I'd put marketing ahead of people. But at the end of the day, your people are going to make or break your company. They're going to take you to wherever it is you want to go if you have the right people. And then I think all of it becomes fairly impossible without the right technology. Business is so competitive, and as you start getting bigger, and if you want to grow cost effectively, even from way back here at the under $500,000 mark, I just truly believe that if you want to grow effectively from the beginning, you have to have some of the top technology, because that technology will save you money. It'll help you be more efficient. It'll help you deliver better customer service. It'll help you reduce the number of people you need on your payroll. It'll help you actually get your marketing out the door. This is all assuming you use the right technology. But it'll just in so many ways make your business actually capable of growing. Technology in most companies is the holdback, and business owners have absolutely no idea that's what one of their most major problems in the company is. When you can't fathom how you could possibly go from 5 trucks to 75 trucks, or go from 10 employees to 100 employees because you have no idea how you'd manage it, or from 300 clients to 3,000 clients, the only way you can do it is the right technology. And generally, what I find most people do is they look at the technology they're using now that they hardly spent any money on, and they assume that most technology is like that. Or they look at the technology they're using and they think, well, there's something probably better out there, but they don't even realize how much the technology is limiting them, or they assume that the technology is only a little bit better, and so it's only going to improve their life a little bit and save them a little bit of money. But in all reality, the right technology is exceptionally better. It's significantly better. It's so incredibly important that it's almost impossible to build these companies without technology, the right technology. You cannot build your company with a $500 piece of software, an $800 piece of software. It's impossible. You can't build your company with inferior mobile devices out in the field tracking data. You can't build your company with lousy cell phones and no tracking of the crews and terrible phone system and all of the other things that technology all the way down to the types of equipment you're using. So I'm talking heavily about software, but even the technology of the type of equipment you're using, how you're looking to get an advantage over your competitors by the small improvements that you can make in your business. So it's critical. So now, because I thought this was such a great question, let's look at a couple things here. So let's look at a couple numbers and just talk about what the realities of a $10 million business mean. So I'm gonna enlarge this here so you can see this. Okay. So we've got let's just use a couple examples. So let's say you're a fertilization weed control company, maybe you're turf and ornamental, but just, these numbers they're fictitious, but they communicate a point. So let's say your average value of a client is $600 a year. You're really focused on just fertilization and weed control, so you generate $600 per year per client on average. So to have a $10 million company, you would have to have 16,666 clients. Clients are going to produce $600 each per year. You want to make $10 million a year, so you need 16,666 clients to have a $10 million business. So another number to think about is, this is a number right up here. So this is line 18 here. And this is your attrition. So if you have 20% attrition, meaning 20% of your clients leave you each year, then you will have to replenish your client base you'll have to sell 3,333 clients per year just to break even. Meaning once you finally get to the 10 million mark, you've got approaching 17,000 clients. Year after year, just to break even and stay exactly where you are with no growth, you'll have to sell 3,333 clients per year. The reason I use 20% attrition is it could be high or low, but I'm using maintenance examples here predominantly, and if you're in landscape or something like that, you can think about how this applies to you. And I'm also, in a way, I'll use some commercial examples here in a minute, but I'm also, in this case, obviously probably more, this could be a commercial residential mix company, but where I'm going with that is, if you look in residential, just simply the number of homes sold in the marketplace, and I realize home sales are down here in the last many years, but historically in my area it had been about 20% per year. That's how many homes were turning. So roughly every 5 years a home was turning over in my marketplace, meaning somebody was moving out and somebody new was moving in. So if you're a company in my area, then just pure attrition through moving homeowners that move, even if you're a perfect company, there's no way you can avoid it. So your attrition number could be more or less than 20%. It's going to have to do with a lot of different factors, but that would mean you keep your clients on average roughly 5 years, which is a really pretty long period, especially even in a lot of commercial contracts these days. So let's say you have 20% attrition. So continuing on with a few examples. Now let's say you're a residential maintenance company and your client value is $2,000. So between mowing and fertilization, weed control, and pruning and whatever else you might sell your clients, your typical client, on average, is worth roughly $2,000 per year to you. That would mean that you'll need 5,000 clients. So you have to have 5,000 clients to reach 10 million. Now, if your client base again turns at 20% per year, you have to sell 1,000 new clients per year to maintain 10 million a year in annual revenue. Now, if you're a commercial maintenance client and your average client value is $15,000 per year, you need to have 666 commercial contracts. At a 20% per year turn, you'd have to be selling 133 per year to maintain a $10 million company. All right, so just a couple other little facts to bring reality to this. Hopefully you can see this here. Let me just make it bigger for you. All right, just to think about what this means. If you have a $10 million company and you are grossing $250,000 per crew, meaning each crew on average within your company generates $250,000 per year, you'll need 40 crews to run that company. If your crews generate on average $200,000 per year, you'll need 50 crews. If they generate $150,000 per year, 66 crews. If they generate $125,000, 80 crews. Those are just some numbers to bring a little reality to the scale and size of what a $10 million business is going to look like. So this is the part now that I think was really interesting that I wanted to talk about here. So let's take a look at this. All right. So earlier I used the example of you had a 20% turn per year. So the example was that regardless of if you're providing service to commercial clients or residential clients, or maybe you're a turf and ornamental only, 20% of your revenue has to be replaced each year. So that's $2 million. So looking at this from I guess you'd say a marketing standpoint, just to put some numbers to this and what this means to your business, if you've got to replace $2 million per year, so all these examples I'm using are once you get to $10 million. I'm not even talking about building the company to that. At the very end here, I'm going to mention something about that. So now we're at $10 million. We've just got to replace $2 million a year in revenue just to keep the company going like it is. So if your cost per sell is $200, meaning for every new client you get, on average it costs $200 to get a client. So a way to explain that would be that you have to send out $200 worth of marketing material to get one client to actually buy. And I'm not talking about how many leads came in. I'm talking about how many convert into a client. So what is your real cost per sale? So if your cost per sale is $200, if you're a fertilization, turf and ornamental company, it's going to cost you $666,000 per year in marketing expense to replace that $2 million. And that's just the marketing. That probably doesn't count the people working the phones and the estimators. I'm talking about marketing expense. It costs $200 to get a lead in that you can close on the phone or close in person. So you've still got the expense of people working the phones, of estimators going out to see the client, whatever the case may be. If you're a residential maintenance company, then your marketing budget's going to be $200,000 per year. And if you're commercial, then it's going to be $26,600, and that's a complete joke. That calculation there is not even possible. I mean, I made a few notes about that. That was just running some math here, dividing it out by your cost per sale and your number of sales you needed per year. If you can imagine, could you actually imagine being able to sell $2 million per year in commercial maintenance for only $26,600? I mean, that's ridiculous. It's impossible. You need sales guys. You're going to have travel. Those sales guys get bonuses. Maybe they get health care. You can kind of see I made some notes about that. I don't know the exact cost that you'd have to spend to sell $2 million per year in commercial maintenance. It's a lot more than $26,000. So that doesn't even make sense. In fact, I quit even calculating it here as we go down the page. So now, if your cost per sale is $150,000, you can see that for a chem business or fertilization weed control, you're looking at roughly $500,000. For residential maintenance, about $150,000, and so on. So you can kind of see some of these numbers. And that just gives you a feel for, in terms of thinking about what it's going to cost to grow your company. Maybe you want to go from $1 million to $5 million, or you want to go from $500,000 to $2 million. These numbers at some level are applicable, and I think the most important point to running through this exercise is just to give you some ideas on how to think about this, and not to be negative about it, because this is doable, but from a realistic standpoint, how are you going to solve this problem? How are you going to drive your cost per sale down? How are you going to get more revenue out of each client? Because when you drive your cost per sale down, you drive your conversion rate up, or you get more money out of each client, it makes this math better. It makes it easier to get there. But this is really critical to being realistic about what your goals are and what kind of company you're going to build. And in fact, how important is this? Do you want to deal with what it takes to run a $10 million company? I think I had somewhere in here, I had the number of crews. So just hypothetically, let's say it took 60 crews to reach 10 million. You can think about how many employees that means, how much management means, all the different things that means. Is that something you even want? Because at $1 million business, you can make a nice income, especially if you really optimize that business. It can be a business that makes you really good money. Now, obviously, at $10 million, a well-optimized business could make you ridiculous money, very, very good money. But is that something you even really want? So that's really the idea behind this exercise here. All right, so let's talk about a couple other things. I had just made some notes here that, in these cost per sale examples, I gave the example that the cost per sale math is not based on covering the cost of your salespeople working the phones or going out to see the client. So it's just cost. It's just the cost to use marketing to get the phone to ring so that you can then convert them into a client. And earlier in the example, I talked about right here. If you're going to grow a $10 million company and each of your clients has a value to each year of about $600, you've got to sell 3,333 clients per year. So now, can you imagine sending out salespeople to sell 3,300? Let's say your close ratio, you get a lot of crummy leads into the business. Let's just say that your conversion ratio is just 50%, okay, just so I can easily do the math in my head. 50%. That means you probably had to see or talk to almost 7,000 potential leads to get the 3,300. Think about the scale of what that means to have 7,000 conversations per year that range from a couple minutes to 30 minutes to 45 minutes each. Who knows? Or worse yet, you have to get out in the truck and go see the homeowner, or you got to go bid their property on site, and or go to the commercial property and take all the measurements and leave all the information behind and write up the proposals. Think of the scale behind doing 6,000 or 7,000 of those per year. So a note that I was making here when you're imagining building a company of that size is think about the reality of what that means. How are you going to close that much business? Well, my argument would be if you're in the turf and ornamental side of the business and you want to close 3,300 clients per year, then you'd better figure out a system where you're closing them over the phone. You're estimating them over the phone, closing them over the phone, because the realities of going out to see those clients it's very low. Likewise, your marketing funnel, your marketing process should have already done most of the selling for you. That way, once you have your prospective client on the phone, you don't have to invest in super expensive guys to close the business, and you don't have to have 1 hour long phone calls to get it closed. And I'm exaggerating a bit with an hour long phone call, but you get the point. You need to have done most of the education, most of warming up the lead so that they're ready to buy prior to the phone call. Something else, I'm talking about all these cost of acquisition numbers. It's cost $200 to get a new client, or $150. Well, let's say here that you're building a $10 million company and you serve a small number of cities. Well, there's only so far into the market, there's only so deep into the market you can go and capture a significant percentage of market share. There's tons of competition in most cities in this industry. So my point is, as you gain larger market share in any one or multiple cities, to grow a $10 million company, you've got to have a big enough marketplace. And if it's pretty focused, which my argument is it should be, then as you start to penetrate more of that market, as you start to take more and more market share, your marketing cost is going to go up, because most people have already seen your marketing message. They know who you are. I mean, if you're putting out $600,000 a year in marketing in a small number of cities, then a lot of people know who you are. So now you've shifted from a scenario where you're an unknown, educating the marketplace, to now you're the known, and they're still not choosing to go with you. So it takes more effort, more selling, more convincing, more educating, more everything to get those remaining clients or prospective clients that haven't switched to you to switch to you, to acknowledge you. So at some level, at some point, and I don't know where that point is, it becomes more expensive to drive new business. So your cost per sale starts to creep. And so then what a lot of companies do is they move to new markets. In fact, at a $10 million lawn care company, from my guess, and I don't think I can back this up, it's a hunch, that most lawn care companies at 10 million have multiple offices. They might be in a certain geographic area, but they're spread out. And my personal experience in being in multiple states and multiple offices and having employees all over the country is that it's not as easy as it sounds, and that your costs go up as you do something like that. Sometimes spreading out is intended to drive down cost, but it doesn't necessarily always drive down cost, especially in the short term. In the long term, once you build out that market and you have the right management in place, yes, it does. But in the short term, moving to a different market, and if you're an owner operator, so you're still kind of running the business and you're out there checking and you're sending people out to that remote location, they're getting on airplanes or driving or whatever the case may be. It's not a cheap thing to grow into a new market, open up new offices. So my point is, your cost per sale may not go up to move into a new market area to get to the $10 million mark, but your overall expenses, your underlying expenses may go up within the company, which would erode your profit margins, which is all acceptable if you look at your business as, you're growing your return on investment, you're growing the equity in your company. Well, the equity is not growing, but you're growing the value of your company. Then you might be willing to essentially make that investment in the company and let profits dip for a period of time. That's all perfectly fine and perfectly acceptable. I'm just saying that be aware that to grow a company to that size and not have it really significantly adversely affect your cost per sale, you might have to move into a new geographic area, and that's going to affect your operational costs. Okay. So my last point here, and I'm going to spend a few minutes on it, is really an interesting one to think about. So let's see here. I had made a couple notes. I'm just going to read them real quick, and then I'm going to talk about my last point. So if you're in the landscape business, then you're going to have to hire salespeople to do this. So I was using a lot of examples of more maintenance-related examples. So, but if you're in landscape, your cost per sale, you're still going to have a marketing cost per sale, as I was talking about, but you're also going to have a salespeople cost, which you really have in the maintenance business as well, especially in commercial maintenance. So that's not really different, but you've still got all the marketing expense we're talking about to drive in leads. But you're not going to be doing the same. You don't have to generally in a bigger design build construction type company. Your sales, your tickets, they're going to be bigger. Your sales are going to be bigger. So, for example, if you want to do $10 million and your average ticket or your average work order is 15,000, then you'd need to do 666 jobs per year. So, what does that mean? I mean, how many leads do you have to gather? Your close ratio on design build is going to be way lower than it's generally going to be on maintenance. So, what kind of marketing budget might you need for that? And then you've got your salespeople, and those guys are not necessarily cheap. If you're going to have an average ticket or work order, basically an average landscape install invoice of around 30 grand, then you're going to have to sell 333 jobs. You're going to have a pretty big sales budget to do that. So a $10 million company, a significant portion of your revenue is going to salespeople and marketing. And so if you're going to build to that level, if you've a lot of guys can get to $1 or $2 million without really having salespeople. To get to the $10 million mark, you're truly talking about building a team of salespeople to go out there and do this, to get you that mark. You're not going to get there with an owner out there selling. I mean, that just becomes absolutely impossible. So it really shifts it when you have to start to invest up front in expensive salespeople that you don't know if they're going to work out. And by all means, that's what you want to do. And I want to be very clear. I'm not being negative about this. I'm simply talking about from a planning standpoint, easing into it or thinking about how you're going to do it. If you want to get to that level, now's the time to start thinking about what am I going to need in a salesperson? What's he going to cost me? Because before you have a team of 4 guys, you got to find one, and you got to figure out, how do you mentally handle a salesperson that you bring on that's costing you X number of dollars per month but isn't really closing any work yet. How long do you keep investing in them? How long do you give them? All those different things are things you're going to deal with bringing on salespeople. It's a challenge, and so this whole exercise here is just to think about those things in advance before they're up on you. All right, so I got to read this one here. I don't remember what this was. It says, that was just a note here. So you'd say, that you'd spend $666,000, roughly almost $700,000 all year long if you were making $10 million. So my point is, you or I might say from the outside, if we're doing $10 million a year, of course I'd spend 700 grand. Who cares? I mean, I'm making $10 million. That would could easily be the attitude when you're kind of there looking back. But I wanted to run through an exercise and show you what growth really looks like, which you've probably experienced at some level. But the numbers get big really fast as you start getting bigger, and the risk gets big really fast. A big hiccup in your business could be, it's not $5,000, which can really hurt when you're a young business because you don't have $5,000, but it can be big math when you get big that could wipe you out if you don't have the line of credit. So imagine you're doing $10 million and you have a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 hiccup, whatever that is, and those kind of things can especially happen with big construction type jobs. But something bad happens and you don't get paid, and you're left covering $300,000-400,000, or who knows? There's the downturn, a really serious hit in the economy, and suddenly your payables or your receivables go from 35 days to 90 days overnight, meaning suddenly you're like into serious cash flow problems because you're still having to pay all your employees. They don't get paid on 90 days, but now all your customers are stretching out how long they're paying you, and you don't have the money coming in, and you can When you get big, you can burn through hundreds of thousands very, very fast. You got to be able to cover that. So it's a scarier proposition when you get there and you're facing the big numbers. When you're there looking back at it, when you're already making 10 million, sure, spending 600 grand isn't as big of a deal. It's a big deal, but it's not as big of a deal. But when you're sitting at 4 million or 3 million or 2 million, looking at the amount of money you've got to spend, hoping that you're going to make the right decisions and it's going to pay off, that's a whole different scenario. So I wanted to run through that math real quick. All right, so let's see here. So point is, roughly 660,000 in marketing to do 10 million in sales. So remember where that number came from, because it was just a fictitious number, but it makes a point. That was us saying that if you had to replenish your 20% of your client base every year, and your average client was worth 600 a year to you, that you'd have to attract 3,333 new clients. And those clients were costing you roughly 200 each to get. So again, this is not good math here. This is not like necessarily accurate. This is to communicate a point. I want to definitely be clear about that. So here, that's the math we're using. And so we were saying here it's going to cost you roughly $670,000 per year in marketing expense to maintain a $10 million company. So you'd have a 6.6% marketing budget. For most companies, that's really high. Okay, now let's look at it though from a different angle, because this scenario is going to cover what it's like to grow from 500,000 to a million, or a million to 2, or 2 to 10, or whatever the numbers you want to think about are. Let's run through this. And we're using that same math, okay? So remember, to just replenish $2 million a year in revenue to keep, because we're losing 20% of our revenue per year through attrition. So to stay at the $10 million mark, we've got to have a budget of $666,000. Now, the reality is, though, when you're growing the business, if you want to go from 8 million to 10 million, so we're growing, and we've only used examples so far of sustaining a $10 million business. Now, let's look at what it means to grow. So this is a fast-growing company here. We're going to go from 8 to 10, okay, but let's use that example. So, all right, so if you're an $8 million company, based on a 20% attrition, you will lose. Let me make these larger so that you can see this, because this is a good example. All right, so you're now an 8 million. So I'm right here on this line 71. All right, you are an $8 million company on your way to 10. All right, so if you lose 20% of your clients per year, that means you need to replenish 1.6 million in revenue just to remain an $8 million company. All right, so our goal is to go from 8 to 10. Well, just to stay at 8, we got to sell 1.6 million in revenue this year. Plus, we got to sell then another $2 million revenue on top of that to get us to the $10 million mark this year. So that means this year we've got to sell 3.6 million in revenue to get us from an $8 million company to a $10 million company. Now back to what I would call our worst case scenario here. Possibly worst case scenario, your average client is only worth $600 per year to you. That's not a good average client revenue number. So we're assuming you're a turf and ornamental type company, and you're not doing super large properties. Okay, all right. So that means you've got at $600 per year, you got to sell 3.6 million in revenue. So that means you need to acquire 6,000 new clients. Now, remember the analogy of, let's say you had a close ratio of only 50%. You got to talk to 12,000 people this year to get your 6,000 new clients. So if your average cost per sale is only 150, so I'm actually dropped it from worst example earlier of 200. Now we're talking just 150. You've got to do 900,000 in. You'll have a $900,000 marketing bill. So imagine that you're an $8 million company. You're spending 11.25% of your total revenue for the year on marketing. That's a big, big marketing budget. And almost all landscape companies would agree that's a big marketing budget for most. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a marketing budget that big. I'm just saying it's big. So you're going to have to spend 11.25% of what you did last year in revenue just to get yourself to 10 million this year. So That's my point. It's totally doable, but that's the reality of growing a business. And you can divide all these numbers by 10 if you're going from 800,000 to a million or whatever the case may be. The point is, this is how you might sit down and think through what's going to be involved. And if you want to be realistic, so I've been involved now in a number of companies, and I've been asked to be partners in a bunch of companies, and I've had all kinds of ideas told to me by other people and I've been asked to invest in a bunch of stuff, and I by no means do I claim to have all the answers, but oftentimes I hear all this stuff, and John, my business partner, and I in Service Autopilot, we've been seeing enough technology deals now that all the time we see guys say, hey, we're going to start this technology company or other. I've had many service companies pitch to me or whatever the case may be, and we're going to go to $10 million a year. And everybody gets all excited and it sounds great, and we're all going to get rich and we're going to make tons of money, but nobody ever sits down and says, okay, what does $10 million a year mean? How much do we make per sale, per customer? What's the value of a customer per year? Divide that by the 10 million. How many clients are we going to need? Where are we going to go find the clients? What's the close ratio going to be? What's it going to cost to acquire them? How hard is it going to get to them? Going back to how do we even find them? There's so many things that have to be answered but it's easy to throw out these big exciting numbers, and as long as we don't think about it too much, we're all super excited about it. I see that over and over and over and over again in businesses. So the point of this long-winded video here is to really talk about and thinking about any kind of planning that's going on. You want to go from 2 million to 10, or you want to grow your client base by 1,000 clients, or you want to go into a new market, your maintenance, you want to go into design build, and you want to sell 800,000 in design build revenue next year. Well, what does that mean? Start with that number and start backing into it using all the factors I talked about, and then you can start to see what reality is. Because actually being wrong and underspending or missing it, basically going out and buying the equipment, buying the stuff, preparing to do 800,000, bringing on the employees to doing it, but then being unrealistic about what it's going to cost to sell it to marketing and sales, you can really put yourself in a hole, because now you got a Bobcat, using the design build example, you got a Bobcat sitting there you don't even need. You've got a designer, a landscape architect on the payroll. You've got all these new employee expenses, yet there was no way in the world you could have ever sold that much revenue because you had approached the whole model incorrectly, and you hadn't correctly looked at just what it was really going to take to get the revenue. So you can apply that to so many different parts of the business. So I hope that's been helpful. The question was fantastic, and to end this, I want to say, can you go from 2 million to 10? No doubt about it. It's happening now in the down economy with many companies. Many companies have done it. Completely possible, but you're going to have to work really hard. You're going to have to really focus, and you got to really know your math. And you're probably going to have a really nice line of credit to get there, or somebody with a whole lot of money to kind of back you, because it does cost a lot of money to grow a company like this quickly. It doesn't cost as much to grow it over 20 years, but if you want to grow it in 5, 7, 8, 9 years, it costs some money. And you can kind of see some of the math behind it. Thanks a lot.